Hi, I am Marloes Peters, and in this video I'm going to give you some practical tips for those of you who are looking for a PhD project. And the first question you should ask yourself, why do you want to do a PhD? Well, this is a question that's bound to come up in any job interview, so you carefully should have thought about it. And the first tip I would give you is speak to other PhD students. Talk about what they do in daily life. So what would a normal day in a PhD look like? How much time would you spend in the lab if you do a science-based project? How much would you do in terms of data analysis or literature review? Because a PhD is at least 3 years or longer. So you need to be really absolutely sure of your choice. So when I was looking for a PhD project, I also looked at industry jobs and I actually did interviews for both so I could compare them. For a PhD, it all comes down to 3 different things. First, people, the project, and then a place. And I will talk you through all those 3. And the second tip is that there needs to be a match in terms of personality and supervision between your supervisor and yourself. Because you will see that everyone will have a very different supervisory style. And you need to make sure that it works for you, or that you are aware of how your communication is going to go through your project. Now, what I would say if you see a PhD project that you're really interested in, I would always recommend to contact the supervisor in advance. Because usually they like to hear a little bit more about their applicants when they're shortlisting for positions. In most cases, you're not limited to just one supervisor. You will often see that there's a supervisory team. And this might really help you if the other supervisors are actually actively involved in the process, because they often come from different backgrounds. So having like a wider support network rather than just one supervisor that you rely on is quite important. The third tip I would give you is to look into the research culture. What is it like in the group? And normally when you would do an interview, you would have the opportunity to talk to other group members. So what I would do, even if during your interview you don't get the opportunity to meet other people, just ask for it. Because it's so important that you can have a one-to-one discussion of other group members to see what the culture is like in a group, how your supervisor communicates with you, and if you think you could fit in there. During your PhD, you definitely make friends for life, just as like you would do in university. And I have seen that throughout my career, and I still collaborate with a lot of the people from my research group. So whether that's my old PhD supervisor, but also with other people, and some of them have their own research group, just like me. Now we've spoken about people, your project is equally as important. So the tip there, and that's tip 4, would actually be, does this research project excite you? Do you think you will be able to spend many years on it researching it? So it doesn't necessarily have to be the same as your master project, so bear in mind a lot of people move towards something else. So it just really needs to be something that you're interested in. And in my case, and in this suggested video I talk more about my PhD project, I thought it was really important that this was a multidisciplinary project. So I was working with the hospital, so I could see how the research I was doing was really applied into real life. So the 5th tip I would give you, and this is really key to find out the details of your project. Because depending on what type of PhD studentship you have, you will have more or less flexibility in the program. And you need to talk to your supervisor to find out whether that's really like a fixed goal in place, particularly if you're working with industry, or if there's some flexibility in the program to adjust it as you go along. Now then it's just the practical element of it. Because your PhD in the UK alone can vary between 3 years, 3.5 years and 4 years. And some of them will contain some additional teaching. Some of them you might be able to do some additional what they call demonstrating, where you can work in the lab to help out students. So all of these details you will need to find out. And also from a practical aspect, they don't all get paid the same. So make sure you are fully informed when you make your choice. And then finally, the place is very important. You might be able to continue your master's project, but a lot of you will move elsewhere. And particularly a lot of you will move to another country to do your PhD. So in that case, it's even more important to do your research. If you're lucky, you might have the opportunity to actually visit the place before you go and you will have an interview. But now with travel restrictions in place, there's a lot of information you can find online. So try and find if you can find stories of other people who've done a PhD there. And the final tip, so this is tip 6, see if there's something about this place that you can call home. So think about what is important for you. Things that you might want to think about here is how easy it would be to visit your family or, for instance, your friends, or whether you prefer to live in a smaller city or in a bigger city, if there's other things about the city or the country that excite you. Particularly for international students, the university would often have organizations. So you would rapidly meet a lot of people and you would do a lot of cultural activities together. So here, like for instance, I live in Newcastle, which is in the north of the UK. So it's a reasonably sized city, but there are things about it that I particularly like. So for instance, even though I'm Dutch, it's still relatively easy to go home. And then also here's the beach. So if you're really an outdoors person, then that's something that you might want to consider. If you're someone who really likes busy city life, then you might want to think about moving to a bigger city. Thank you for watching this video and hopefully you find these tips useful. So bear in mind it's different for everyone, and good luck with making your choice and finding the PhD of your dreams. Please subscribe to our channel if you want to find more practical tips, like for instance, how do you write your first research paper, but also if you're interested in topical research, such as 3D printers and sensors.